There will be a component that will be set down around inflation, around population increase. There will be an exemption for natural disasters. Obviously, the Christchurch Council's got humongous costs associated with their recovery, and it would not be fair. Interestingly, all those three components are in the confidence and supply limits on increases in central government expenditure, so we're asking no more of councils than what we have as central government imposed on ourselves. There may also be provision for exemptions around situations where, for instance, the Environment Court may require a council to proceed with a major investment, say in a piece of sewerage or other infrastructure. And they are details to be worked out through regulation with Local Government New Zealand. And I am confident that we can come up with a set of regulations that most councils will say is a pretty reasonable set of fiscal responsibility requirements.
In terms of removing reference to the cultural, social, environmental well-being of communities, I mean, what sort of spending do you expect that will cut out? What sort of activities will it stop?
It's quite difficult to be able to look back over the last decade and be able to specifically cut off how much of it's been from councils expanding their roles, how much of it has been from some of the other components and rate increases. What we do know is that the single biggest item of increased cost for councils over the last decade has been in their salaries cost. There's been quite big growth in that area, and that's why in this package we've provided them with some specific tools in this regard. In terms of the overall picture, what we do know is that prior to the 2002 Act, for the decade previous, rate increases were going up at 3.9% per year. In the decade since, they've been going up at 7% per year. I think the only fair conclusion to come to is both the bureaucratic requirements and the expansion of the purpose of local government have cost councils and ratepayers considerably more. I note the figures that if rates had continued to increase at a similar rate of the previous decade, the average householder today would be spending $500 a year less on rates, and the economy as a whole would be spending $1 billion less on rates.
Well, for instance, I mean, most councils these days have economic development agencies. Would you expect those to be scrapped as a result of these?
Well, they are, and this is where we're quite deliberately saying it is the role of councils to provide local public services. Central government actually provides economic development services through an agency like of the Trade and Enterprise New Zealand. I think there is an appropriate role for councils to play in that area, albeit councils have to ask the same tough questions as we do of trade and enterprise, that we're getting good value for money. So you should not take from this change in purpose that councils will not have any role in the sort of that economic development area. I take an area like environment. The Resource Management Act sets down very specific obligations for councils around the environment. But it's not this broad-based purpose that we had in the Local Government Act that let them go well beyond the mere purposes of the Resource Management Act. And that's where I don't think that very broad purpose covering economic, social, cultural and environmental well-being basically said that councils could do absolutely everything. And the truth is that both central government and the private sector have important roles around all of those.